But the Democrats have openly said they're going to launch, begin killing Trump supporters, killing police officers, killing members of Congress. They've had high-level Democratic operatives, even on CNN, saying, hashtag hunt Republicans. So this has all been testing, like a parrot tests its perch. Let me tell you something. I was there with 3 military guys who were all former operators, okay? And at the shooting range yesterday. And they see a Muslim man with 5 women in hijabs. Then I leave, and the same man leaves and says, hi, Alex, knows who I am, and more women come in hijabs. Our guys decided to stay there and watch. 2 more groups came in. They asked the folks, so they said, you ever seen this guy here before? And they're like, yeah, he's never come in dressed like this. He's never come in with other people, but here he is. And they basically said, the biggest group, as I talked to them previously, they see coming in now are Democrats. And this is a really high-end place. And I said, multi-story, and I said, well, are they converting, waking up? And he goes, no. He goes, they got a Second Amendment right, too. He goes, no, our biggest group now is liberals. And they think a war's coming. And so everybody's just kind of like this when they're there. I mean, purple hair, you name it. I mean, it is... We're so beyond screwed. They don't get, yeah, see, you want guns for a bad government. See, we can have guns now. You understand why you want them. There's no logic. They just tune into Saturday Night Live, and they call us all white supremacists and say we should all die. And that the president cut off aid to Puerto Rico. Total lie. It's been piling up for 2 weeks. And you see it, and now you see this attack. Now, I, of course, on Friday, laid out the whole plan. I said, I believe they're coming in October. I don't believe it's November 4th, like they've said. Drudge linked to Paul's article where they're saying they're going to start killing everybody November 4th. I mean, imagine if Charlie Manson had hundreds of thousands of followers or millions of supporters, and he was saying everywhere, November 4th is the day of doom. The day of doom is coming, November 4th. We will march out and kill the conservatives and kill the judges and kill the police officers and kill the talk show host and kill the military. And we will go forth into the recruiting centers, and we will go forth into their churches, and we will kill them. And then the church gets attacked last week by the Sudanese, and people get run over and killed in Canada and stabbed, Allah Akbar, in France. I mean, it's multiple times a day. Hell, before the midnight passes today, will we see more attacks? I said to Matt yesterday in an hour-long interview, I said, I almost expect something today. It's October 1st. The October Revolution, that's when they really took Moscow. It's when they started to win. Knifemen yelling Allah Akbar. And now, I got this from the same sources in the hostage rescue team, which is really made up of a roving group of military, not roving, rotating, that they went in with the police as well, and then he shot at them, and then they took him out. Now, even mainstream media, hours after we reported it, has the transcripts, and this is coming up at the bottom of the hour. Matt Bracken will ride shotgun with us. That 2 officers were shot engaging him in the hotel, up to the room, and that also that there was gunshots on the transcript before the detonation. That was my intel. It's pure bull. He was killed by the hostage rescue team after he shot officers, just what I told you hours ago. The first hour, then Kit went and wrote an article about it, and that there was just Antifa crap everywhere and Islamic stuff and photos of him and his wife in the Middle East. We then searched it, found out they found her on Facebook in the Middle East. So we're going to Matt Bracken right now. That's just some of the background. He'll ride shotgun with us for the rest of the hour. And then David Knight's going to pop in with breaking news at the bottom of the hour. But Matt Bracken, we're here. It's October. It's 2 months after Matt's on the road at a friend's house today. We appreciate him doing it. Here we are months later, and they're doing it. It's happening. I believe this is the signal of the new Civil War. They're attacking right-wingers, I believe, to then hope that they can then stage attacks against themselves and have it be plausibly believable that they're trying to manipulate us into a confrontation. And that's what my CIA, FBI, Army, and other contacts that I've called today believe, and the former high-level CIA individual who used to run major operations, who I had on just in the last hour, was saying. What is your analysis of this as a former Navy SEAL anti-terrorism expert?
Well, we don't really know yet much about this guy. There's a lot of conjecture out on the internet. I've seen the YouTube videos. You've probably seen them, where a guy that's supposedly Stephen Paddock in August was at an anti-Trump rally wearing the pink NASA shirt with the pink P hat. And if that's the case, then that would that would dovetail with what you're saying. But I've also seen that he was a hunting enthusiast and a pilot.
But his brothers come out and said he was not into hunting.
Okay, then that's a false report this morning.
Well, understand, I have sources that were there, not involved in it in the shooting, but were behind him, and they say that there was Antifa crap everywhere, and that his girlfriend was going to the Middle East. That's now been confirmed.
Yeah, if the guy was handed an AK-47, it takes virtually no training to lean out of a window and shoot at 30,000 people that are herded together. Your ladies wearing the hijabs at the gun range yesterday, all they need to do is learn how to put a magazine in, work the safety, and pull the trigger. They don't need to learn how to clean the weapon or zero the rifle, anything like that. At the type of contact ranges they would be talking about, it would be like in a mall or a concert venue. But this guy obviously had 20 or 30 magazines preloaded, shot out the window, and just fired almost straight down at the crowd. It really comes down to who is this guy. If he's an Antifa,
let me tell you, it's now confirmed. Exactly, it's now confirmed. His father, Patrick Benjamin Paddock, was a convicted bank robber who escaped federal prison, tried to run over FBI agents with his car, and then that he basically, the son is like a cop hater, and that's how he got into Antifa and got in with the Islamists. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's certainly plausible. If the guy in the videos at the anti-Trump rally wearing the NASA shirt, the NASA shirt kind of dovetails with living previously in Melbourne, Florida. Visiting Cape Canaveral is one of the things you do in Melbourne. It's like the local, one of the big local tourist spots and employers, obviously. But
well, let's get down to brass tacks. Let's get down to brass tacks, Matt Bracken. I'll let you give your analysis. You've been predicting just this. Just last night, hours before it happened, you said they're going to shoot into a stadium or something like this. But you thought it'd be against the leftist to get them all being the victims. Instead, it's a bunch of right-wing white folks, predominantly at a country music concert.
Right. I think the shooter is probably, if he is a left-winger, he's driven predominantly by rage and hate. So he hates these, deplorable pro-Trump, white Christian patriotic types. To him, they are the devil. So firing straight at them would be a way to instigate and trigger a civil war in the hopes that conservative right-wingers will retaliate in kind against, say, Antifa or Black Lives Matter. This is sort of the Steve Scalise shooting on steroids. This is somebody trying, doing his part to shake the tree, to cause more rotten apples to fall out, attempting to trigger Civil War II. That's the goal. And remember, the people that are trying to trigger Civil War II don't care who wins Civil War II. That's besides the point. If America is embroiled in a civil war, it will be taken out of action on the world stage. It will be a non-player. It will be completely inward focused for the next 5 or 10 years. I call Civil War II Bosnia times Rwanda.
Crazy, and just no news when a Sudanese goes and shoots a bunch of Christians and kills one, and he says, oh, because they're white. I mean, imagine if that happened to black folks, it'd be all over the news. This is how they're hyping this up to really be a civil war against white people. And that somehow that's going to be under the whole Marxist-Leninist system, and that's what they've done in other countries, is foment that uprising. I don't see it working. I don't see it being successful, but they are building at a crescendo right now towards that in October and November. And notice I kept saying October's almost here, and just building up to it. October 1st hit, ISIS attacks, Al-Qaeda attacks, all over the world, attacks here, and then the left is everywhere going, white male, see a white male. You can see them even saying, you're going to be the white males, we can blame them, and then the fallback position is that, that you're with ISIS because you joined them 2 months ago. That way, once our revolution takes place, you'll be a martyr in it, honey, and you're ready. I'm so proud of you. Too bad you were diagnosed with that brain tumor, but you're going to show everyone. So you can just see how they get this all set up. It'll be like Gran Torino. You're going to be a hero at the end, baby. Now kill those white bastards, okay? So, I mean, you can really see the mind control. You take your Halcyon. That's just a scenario. I might as well put one out here because everything points towards that. ISIS taking responsibility. They don't take responsibility generally unless they've really done it. Matt Bracken, what's the next shoe to drop? What do you expect? Because the left is calling for civil war.
Well, they're trying in every way that they can to instigate it. And again, the point is not necessarily to establish a communist government like that traitor West Point, now lieutenant, would like to see. The goal is just to embroil the United States in a bloody civil war, Rwanda times Bosnia.
So the globalists can take over and establish their communist EU worldwide.
Correct, and they don't even care if it works out that way or if it just works out as feudal vassal states, city states like we discussed last night, where they're the kings of their little emirates and city states, and we're the peasants and serfs. But
yeah, they want to radicalize leftist areas, as they say in globalist documents, to be like EU globalist centers that have other centers. They just want control of theirs because they know they're being made a regional party, the Democrats, right. So they just want to fully cement that.
And it works completely well under the rubric of Islam. So socialists like Carlos the Jackal that turn into Muslims, they make the conversion very smoothly, especially men. I mean, you get to even have more wives, you can beat them. But in every way, you can justify, I'm still a socialist. I'm a socialist and an Islamist. So it works out very smoothly.
And then the feminists say, have sex with Muslims and let them put hijabs on you. This is sexy. And the women go, yes, cut my genitals off and put a hood on me. I'm liberal. Because as long as it's liberal, it's cool.
Well, but I want to take a minute and talk about what's happening, what the big picture is, what's coming next, okay? I wrote an essay, a long essay a couple years ago. It got reprinted very widely called When the Music Stops, How Our Cities Will Explode in Violence.
Ooh, that's interesting because the music stopped with the shooting last night.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go.
I read that essay years ago. Hey, let's put it on screen. Go ahead.
Once the Civil War kicks off, it will turn racial. It always does. In the Rwandan context, it was black tribe versus black tribe, but between them it was racial. Hutus versus Tutsis. And even if you were a good-hearted Tutsi that lived with all your Hutu neighbors, or the vice versa, or if you were in Bosnia and you were a Serb living among your Croat friends, or you were a Bosniak Muslim living with your Serbian friends, once this civil war kicks off, your skin or your religion in Bosnia became your ID badge. It didn't matter if you had lots of friends.
It becomes the uniform because we've had people that whose girlfriends were Hillary supporters, and they literally made their husbands or boyfriends leave InfoWars to do it, and then they would go through Stockholm Syndrome where the males would then decide it was true and then begin making stuff up in their head.
Yeah, Stockholm Syndrome is very true, and it explains how women can become Islamists also. It's like, my husband's not beating me anymore. I love the guy. But what's going to happen is once this civil war kicks off, so much of our infrastructure, our critical infrastructure nodes run through our cities. In my novel, Foreign Enemies and Traitors, where the New Madrid earthquake disrupts the Tennessee.
No, you just said it. It's just like Puerto Rico with the Democrats controlling the infrastructure and the trucks. They will hold off the aid and will hijack the power to hold the countrysides and other areas hostage.
Right. How many died directly from the hurricane? Not many. What's the big threat? The big threat is that the electronic dome has collapsed. The electrical infrastructure life support dome has collapsed in Puerto Rico. The wind didn't kill many people. In the same way, in a civil war in the United States, bullets aren't going to kill that many people. But what's going to happen is people will start shooting at transformers. If I don't have electricity, why should the enemies across the river have electricity? Everybody gets a vote on the electrical grid in a civil war, in a modern civil war. Shooting at transformers is all it takes. And doing
so the answer is in leftist cities, we've got to have commando teams once this kicks off, take all the liberal cities and arrest them all immediately or they'll sabotage the infrastructure. We've got to have the police departments work with us. I'm being serious. I'm not going to command and control this. I'm just putting the idea out. I'm sure the plans are. I know it's already been drawn up because the left threw it up to take over our cities under the John Warner Defense Authorization Act of 2007. I mean, I'm sure Trump and others have already drawn up the plans to seize control. They've got to do it.
We don't have the personnel. It's impossible. We can barely do Harvey, Irma, and Maria. So,
but what happens if military teams go in and take out the Democratic leaders?
I think that the cities will still burn because once anything disrupts
and
the
by
electronic
take out, I mean throw their ass in chains.
But that won't keep the infrastructure running. You can put him against a wall and shoot him. It won't fix the EBT system. When the EBT system collapses, which it will in any of these
I agree. So why are
scenarios,
these idiots going along with this? And they even admit they're trying to, they're such traitors. That's why the private elites have already fled the U.S.
Well, most of them, remember, lemmings are not trying to commit suicide.
The left says they're launching the civil war. They're going for broke now. They know they're losing. You've got martial law in Catalan over in Spain. You've got jihadists attacking every day. Clearly, all over the world, the left, allied with Islam's making its move. The attacks on a graph are going straight up. And so it's going to go from every day to every 6 hours soon. Like you talked about years ago about how it would just suddenly metrically increase. And I think we've hit that point.
Yeah, I think so, especially when you consider after the 3 hurricanes that the federal government is pretty much maxed to its limit. I mean, we've got 2 of our primary Aegis class destroyers out of action due to incompetence, signaling how our military has been so infected by the rot of political correctness that we can't even keep a destroyer out of the way of a
You just said
tanker.
it. Everybody's saying it. We have GPS that controls it. That we have saboteurs by Obama everywhere in the military.
Well, and they've just let in people like this lieutenant that's now at the 10th Mountain, who was at West Point wearing Che Guevara shirts and nobody turned him in.
And who dreams of killing capitalists on his website.
And who had an Islamist professor at West Point who took this teenage boy to India for a field trip, vacation together, very suspicious. I would guess that they took an off-the-books detour to Pakistan during that trip.
Of course.
Our vaunted NSA and FBI, CIA never flagged this, never saw this. So under Obama, and probably even before then, we've seen the entire federal apparatus staffed with social justice warriors and traitors. So it's not like we're just going to flip a switch and rout the communists, because we now have these communists all through the FBI, CIA, NSA. This what's her name, game show girl, the funny name from Atlanta that was
Reality Winner.
Yeah, Reality Winner. What a ditz. How the hell did she get a clearance to be
Because
working
it's a
with
total infiltration for this takedown, but they meant to direct it with Hillary before so that it would have government cover. They don't have that now. That's why they should give up. But they're running a bunch of robots and dumbed down useful idiots, as you said, so they can't give up because fire ants don't have brains. They're still going to execute the operation.
That's right. That's right. And I saw Dick Morris on C-SPAN last night. It was recorded, I think, September 19th, talking about his book. I think it's called Rogue State. I thought he was dead on. They've left the stay-behinds. The Obamaites have left their stay-behinds.
They admit they did. They admit they did. They said they put a stay-behind network in the New York Times back in early January of this year. Let's bring David Knight in right now. Both of you co-hosting together. David Knight, host, of course, weekday mornings, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. The Real News, it's David Knight's Real News is actually the name of the show officially. David, give us your breakdown on what you see happening here.
Well, you know, Alex, regardless of who the shooter was, regardless of what's going to be coming, what is happening immediately is Hillary Clinton coming out after gun control legislation that's in Congress right now. And this would be legislation to remove some of the controls that have been put on there. And, of course, we have the SHARE Act. Part of that is the Hearing Protection Act. Hillary Clinton came out and she said they ran from the sound of the gunfire. Imagine if there had been silencers there, because as part of this is to remove some of the restrictions, onerous restrictions that are on suppressors. And we understand that even in European countries where they have heavy gun control, you don't have to have restrictions on purchase or possession of suppressors in some of those countries. But Alex, what they're talking about here is also reciprocity. That's a big part of this Gun Control Act, to allow people to not face the kind of legal jeopardy that people who have already been vetted as concealed carry owners, if they travel to places like New Jersey, they can face very serious penalties. They don't know the state laws there. So after the Scalise shooting, there was a move for people to, we thought this was going to go through, yet the liberals see the Scalise shooting as something that enforced their hand in all of this, and we have seen them
instead of the fact for them calling for revolution and everything out of the gates before we even know what's going on, they're branding white males conservatives. I mean, it's like Trudeau in Canada when a Somali runs over a bunch of people, says we must eradicate white supremacy as a response, like saying you deserve to die, you're white. It's their weird religion, and it's white people pushing it.
Yeah, I want to point out to people that, if you've got a war going on, there's three things that happen. They want to stop you from moving, they want to stop you from communicating, and they want to stop you from shooting. They want to put things in control that are going to control the internet, that are going to be more gun control. They don't want to take any of the gun control that they put on. They don't want any of that to disappear. And they're also going to be coming after our movement. These are all things that are happening now. And these are things that we need to be aware of. And this is the push to push this stuff back. These are firearms laws. And when they talk about the fully automatic guns that were used in this, and I sat there and listened to this in quarter speed, and I could count about 100 rounds in the first initial burst of this, coming very rapidly, coming very consistently. So they're going to come after the high-capacity magazines. They're going to talk about fully automatic weapons. But people need to understand that you have existing laws right now that make it very difficult, if not impossible,
we have the guns
to get a fully automatic gun.
I think we've won the intellectual battle. Stay there, David. We're going to come back.
Yeah.
But, Matt, we've got 30 seconds till we go to break. What do you make of our sources that say that he was a basic Antifa and that he was connected to jihadis?
I'd say they got tired of waiting for a right-winger to kick this thing off. They've been trying to goad the right. But I'd say this guy just got tired of waiting and went after his most hated target.
I'm going to ask you the same question I'm about to ask him. What would you call this period in civilization that we are currently in, David? What would you call this time we're in?
Well, I think we've talked about it before. I would go with the term that came up by Strauss and Howe. I would call it the fourth turning. I think history goes in cycles. I think we are well into this cycle. As a matter of fact, I would say that instead of waiting for some war to be the beginning of this fourth turning, I think it actually already started in post 9/11. So I think we're in a situation here where we have seen liberty lose its value to the American people. The promise of security is all that they need, and I think we've got a big fight ahead of us to keep people informed about gun control, because I think they're going on the offensive again. I mean, Hillary immediately went to this legislation that is on the floor now that we're trying to get pushed through to put some common
Even though
sense.
it's her scumbag, probably her type operative. I mean, it's pretty conclusive.
Right.
ISO took credit. The guy looks like a leftist. It could be a setup, but it's all pointing towards a real guy.
We've seen them use false flags to get gun control through in the past. Fast and Furious, gunwalker programs. That was their false flag. And I saw this when I was at the UN. We're covering their vote on the UN Arms Trade Treaty. They had already lost that false flag narrative. They had killed an agent. It got exposed. And so then we had 1 week before they were going to have the vote at the UN Arms Trade Treaty. They had the Aurora, Colorado shooting to try to get the narrative back. They're trying to get this.
That's a good news that everything they touch blows up in their face because no one trusts them?
That's true. And every time we have a shooting like this, they come with both more gun control legislation or try to stop gun control legislation being removed, and you have the people going out and buying firearms for their protection because of what they just saw in Catalonia, or because of what Kaya Jones told me. She said, look, we had an FBI agent where we were, and he said, I'm on my honeymoon. I don't have a firearm. Does anybody here have a firearm? Amongst all of them, they only had one firearm with 7 shots in it. They gave it to him. But that's what we're looking at and what we saw in Catalonia with the firemen and the local police not being able to protect the voters from the jackbooted thugs that were with the national government because they were outmanned, outgunned. We don't want to see that happen.
And it was bullies beating up women. We've got to keep the Second Amendment. Thank you, David Knight. Host every weekday morning, 8 to 11 a.m. Central. Thank you, David. Coming up, I'm going to co-host with Jack Posobiec for about 20, 30 minutes. Then he has a guest coming on. But we've got witnesses that talk about another middle school shooting in Vegas. George in Las Vegas, friends were there. The guy already dead, 2 bodies taken out. We're going to talk to him. Leo, Washington State, info on how Vegas shooting was planned. A lot of times they use drills as the covers. The people involved don't know. Then they'll send in a shooter, the globalists will, in the drill. Video published a month ago. So we're going to talk to all these callers. The toll-free number to join us is 877-789-ALEX. We've got 6 minutes left. So, Matt Bracken, you've got the floor to make other points as a former Navy SEAL and counterterrorism expert and author who has been predicting this with great precision.
Yeah, I think that Fast and Furious is spot on. That was a false flag operation. As far as the federal government doing a mass murder false flag operation, it already happened. It was called Fast and Furious. The intention was what happened, to rack up hundreds of dead Mexicans, blame it on the unbridled gun sales in the USA as a way of stopping so-called assault rifle sales.
And that even came out in the memos they got. Sorry to interrupt, but they even came out on CBS.
But even though it didn't work completely, there was no investigation. Holder, got condemned or, got sanctioned by Congress, but slap on the wrist, nothing happens. A strong memo, a letter in his file. He's making millions as in one of these payola lawyer gigs. But yeah, we've already seen false flags. A lot will depend on the honesty of the hostage team that went in. Are they all going to be deep state goons, or are there going to be some patriots in there? Because if they sanitize the scene, they could turn this guy into a right-winger. I mean, he could have all Antifa literature in 1 hour, and the next hour it's all John Birch Society. So we really will depend on the patriotism of the first responders in that hotel room to see what really went on. And also we'll see a lot of the best investigation is done by the weaponized autistics on YouTube and 4chan and things like that, where people will do the work that the FBI used to do when they had honor and integrity, before they just became Stasi goons over the last decade, where even the honorable FBI agents aren't so honorable because all they care about is their paycheck and their pension. They keep their head down and don't say anything while they know that, their reputation is being trashed forever. So yeah, we're in interesting times. And you said, what would we call this era? I would say this is the pot beginning to boil over era. This is when the ground starts shaking and the weakly attached fruit starts falling off the tree. These are the Scalise shooter, the Las Vegas shooter. These are the most mentally fragmented among the loose cannons.
They're the canary in the coal mine for the Civil War.
Absolutely. And I want to mention, while I got a minute, and I've got a big audience, this book is free on Kindle right now. Matt Bracken, Castigo Key. It's $0. If you click it, it'll show that, we have some people interested in conservative fiction, not just, Hollywood, New York, liberal.
Sure, very important. Tell folks again, it's a free book. The latest in your series has come out. This is the book before that.
Yeah, this is my latest book, which has a 4.9 star rating, like 250 reviews in 2 months.
It's about Islamic sex slavery, but you can put a lot of classified stuff in there because it's a fiction book.
It's my counter-jihad novel. But yeah, we're in interesting times. Every day that I wake up with electricity, I say is a good day. One of these days, it's going to be Puerto Rico for all of us. It might not be a hurricane blowing the roof off, but we're going to wake up and the television doesn't turn on. And then after that, all bets will be off.
And again, that's their plan. They admit it is. Why are so many leftists, mayors and people that know the food's piled up 100 feet in the air at all the ports, why would they just join in on evil, not deliver the food, work with the unions not to do it, just to get political points? I can't believe there's so many bad people.
Yeah, it's very evil, but that's part of the reason why Puerto Rico was, bankrupt and had such a corrupt infrastructure already. Any money you put into basically a semi-third world place like Puerto Rico, most of it gets siphoned off to the bosses.
So it really is a morality. It's a morality tale.
It is, and there's no zoning. Everything is graft and corruption down there. So if you send $1 million down there to put up power lines, $900,000 is going to go into somebody's bank account, and $100,000 will go into cheap.
And that's why the head of the union said, we're not going to, until we get big pay raises and stuff, nothing ships. He's admittedly holding everybody hostage and proud of himself because the evil people in his union love it.
Well, just remember the difference between Puerto Rico and any city in America is that a hurricane did it to Puerto Rico. But what will kill people in Puerto Rico is the lack of infrastructure. We're all living under an electronic glass dome, like on a moon base. We don't see it because we just see the stars through the invisible dome.
But without it, we become completely dependent.
Completely, and just like people in life support in a hospital, we die. It just some will die faster, some will die slower. But once this thing kicks off, I don't see how the cities don't burn. The EBT system fails. Food doesn't get delivered to the cities burn. The infrastructure running through the cities is cut. And then what? Well, it doesn't really matter to the people that want to see this happen what happens to America. The fact that we're in a civil war is enough.